Albero Gonzales. Remember him, the guy who was okay with torturing people? Not the nicest man, but although he came across as kind of a nice man, actually. His affect was always, rather gentle, actually. He's now a professor or heads a college someplace. But anyway, he said that, and I quote, "As the United States approaches a critical election, I can't sit quietly as Donald Trump, perhaps the most serious threat to the rule of law in a generation, eyes a return to the White House. For that reason, though I'm a Republican, I've decided to support Kamala Harris for president." Trump failed to do his duty and exercise his presidential power to protect members of Congress, law enforcement, and the Capitol from the attacks that day. He failed to deploy executive branch personnel to save lives and property and preserve democracy. He just watched on television and chose not to do anything because that would have been contrary to his interests. Trump still describes that day as beautiful. And as for those subsequently convicted of committing crimes, he describes them as hostages. Albero Gonzales goes, this is a fairly lengthy thing. I'm only sharing bits and pieces of it. He goes on to say, any discussion about fidelity to the rule of law has to include Trump's 34 state felony convictions, his state civil financial judgment of libel based on sexual abuse, as well as the pending federal elections interference case, not to mention the recently dismissed federal documents case that Special Counsel Jack Smith is continuing to pursue. Standing alone, these charges, convictions, and judgments show that Trump is someone who fails to act time and time again in accordance with the rule of law. And then he adds, to be fair, I've spoken with Trump only once. I do not really know him. It is telling, however, that several senior officials who worked for him in the White House now refuse to support him, including his vice president, chief of staff, defense secretary, and national security advisor. Their unwillingness to endorse their former boss is an indictment of his character at a level equal to his many, many criminal indictments. Gonzales added that he thinks the Supreme Court needs an enforceable code of ethics. Yeah, you think? Amazing. So, I mean, it's like, what can you say? He says some of these Republicans who were involved in some just terrible things. I mean, Albero Gonzales was just like all in on torturing people that, that they thought had something to do with 9/11, who had nothing to do with 9/11 at all. I mean, Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, so you couldn't extract people from Iraq and torture them and get 9/11 information. But it was fine with Gonzales and George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, war criminals all. But Dick Cheney and now Albero Gonzales, we haven't heard from Bush, and frankly, Bush is just so humiliated. The man is such a criminal, and in the eyes of I think most of the world, and did so much damage to this country by lying us into 2 wars, which he told his biographer in 1999, Mickey Herskowitz, told him he was going to have a war with Iraq before 2004 if he got elected in 2000, because it would help him get reelected. And sure enough, it did. So anyhow, here we are.